Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's 3 p.m. Eastern, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jess Bocci. I am the Director of Marketing for AIM Transportation Solutions. I just kind of want to start by telling you, we host this monthly webinar series, and it's primarily to inform our customers as well as anyone who wants to join in on issues that are affecting companies who are operating commercial vehicles. So I kind of just want to start quickly by telling you a little bit about AIM. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, you may know us as AIM National Lease, AIM Leasing Company, or AIM Integrated Logistics. Those are all names that we do business as, and that's kind of because we offer a really large menu of services. Our services vary from commercial rentals to full service leasing to dedicated fleet management, maintenance programs, professional shop management, the list goes on. So AIM, we are an American family owned and operated company, and we are 100% customer focused. So we will customize a solution for any company, small or large, and this customized solution will really help you improve your operation and control your costs. One of the ways that we like to service our customers is by delivering relevant information to them. We do that both through these webinars, through our monthly newsletters, and through social media. So if you guys aren't already following us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, please follow, because we share a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff that's really good information for you to have. So during this webinar, we're going to make sure that everyone has the information they need about one particular issue, which is the CVSA Brake Safety Week, which is occurring, that's next week. And it starts Sunday, September 15th and runs through the 21st. So it is Sunday through Saturday. What's going to happen during this Brake Safety Week is the CVSA is going to be doing checks on people to make sure that they're compliant with all the brake safety regulations that are out there. So we just want to make sure that you guys are prepared. Nobody is getting their operation, impacted negatively by having any kind of downtime, and everybody's having the best safety practice they can. So today we have our internal safety experts, our people from AIM here, who we have John Rugarber, who's a safety manager at AIM, and Aaron Chamberlain, who is our director of maintenance. They're both going to speak to us a little bit today. And John's really going to start out by reviewing what to expect during Brake Safety Week, what you can really look for, what's going to happen, and what a violation can mean for your company. And then just how to avoid a violation through driver safety. From there, we're going to have Aaron Chamberlain, who again, he is our director of maintenance here. And he's going to kind of just talk to us about the best preventative safety measures that you can take as far as maintenance is concerned. The good thing is if you're already an AIM customer, you don't have to worry about that because we already have you covered. But it's still good to kind of have this information, so we want to share it with you. After the presentation, both John and then Aaron are going to present, and then at the end, we're going to open the floor for questions. So if you have any questions at that time, you can go ahead and either unmute yourself and ask the question verbally, or you can type it into the chat function. Either of those options work. And then following the meeting tomorrow morning, I'll send out a recording, a link to the recording for this meeting for you, and a PDF copy of both John and Aaron's presentation. So you guys can go ahead and share those internally if you think this information would be good for anyone else in your organization, or if you just want to review it yourself. So you can look for that tomorrow morning. And I'll include both John and Aaron's contact information as well as my own. So if you want to reach out to any of the three of us for further information, or if you have any questions about AIM or anything else, we'd be happy to answer them. So again, thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And John, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Jessica, for that beginning statement. I want to welcome everybody today. My name is John Rugarber, and I'm a regional safety manager, training administrator with AIM. Been with AIM for approximately 18 years. And my contact number and my email address is below that title down there. As Jess had mentioned a few moments ago, the Brake Safety Week is occurring September 15th through the 21st, which would be beginning Sunday the 15th at midnight, and it concludes on Saturday the 21st at midnight. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of different items for you in the short period of time that I'm with you. This next slide. So what to expect? So we're going to expect increased inspections. That's a given. Just some information to give with that. Out of the top 10 items placing vehicles out of service in 2018, the number 2 item was 396.3.
Oh, turn it up.
That was the number of brakes equal to or greater than 20%. So if any more than 2 brakes are out of service on a 6, 8, or 10 wheel end unit, then that's where that would come into play. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to include 2 links to J.J. Keller and also to the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, which offers really good books. J.J. Keller's book is a big, large green book, and also the CVSA book is a laminated book that officers use to determine who is going to be placed out of service. So that number of brakes equal to or greater than is on page 18, 19, and 20 of that particular book. The number 6 violation out of 10 was 393.45, brake tubing inadequacy. And number 10 was 396.3A1, inspection, repair, and maintenance of the unit itself. Possible delay of drivers and/or shipments. We could expect that also. Hopefully we don't have that problem. If the vehicles are not maintained at the proper levels, this could be an issue. If you're placed out of service, it could affect the driver's pay, could also impact customer relations. You're trying to get something delivered, your customer's expecting it. We all live in a just-in-time world. I need my stuff yesterday, and now it won't be here because the truck has been placed out of service. And then the downside of that is lost revenue to the company. So that would be another avenue of possible delay of driver and/or shipment. Under company and driver CSA Impact, I won't cover that in depth, but I will glance over top of it. Points are associated with CSA under that program. It goes on a scale of 1 to 10. There's a driver's safety management system and a carrier safety management system that's involved with that. Also in the J.J. Keller CSA handbook, for example, 396.3A1, that breaks out of service, those points do not get associated with the driver himself, him or herself. It does fall under the carrier system's scoring evaluation. 393.45, again, the driver is not held responsible for that particular violation, although the company is. He wouldn't necessarily know what brake size hoses would go on the vehicle, nor would he necessarily be able to check the stroke of the brakes themselves unless he was certified to do so. Ironically, 396.3A1, inspection, repair, maintenance, that does fall under the driver's purview. He is responsible to inspect his vehicle through the use of a pre-trip, inter-trip, and post-trip inspection, and it also falls onto the carrier safety measurement system. Insurance company impact. A lot of people don't realize that this CSA score, although it is not open to the public any longer, they are still able to go in and see violations that have occurred, see the rate at which they've occurred, and some insurance companies may possibly increase their rates. The company itself could see increased liability in the event of legal proceedings. Were you to have an accident, I'm sure that would come into play when the defense attorneys looked into the vehicle maintenance portion of that. And then loss of coverage by the insurance company itself, if the insurance company no longer wants to carry you as a client. All right, so some of the overview. In May 15th of 2019, CVSA's law enforcement members conducted 10,358 commercial motor vehicle inspections. That's on one particular day. 16.1% of those vehicles had critical brake related violations, and those 1,667 commercial motor vehicles were placed out of service. So according to the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, more than 500,000 commercial motor vehicle violations in 2017 were related to brakes. So that's another reason why they're really focusing on this brake safety week. If anybody is aware, back a few months ago, there was a large accident in Denver, Colorado. A truck came down off of I-70 into Denver, and I'm not sure how many people died, but there's going to be a large investigation to that. Supposedly the brakes were not working properly. Not sure the real reason, but the liability in that is tremendous. So you don't want to fall into that category. The next one, some of the statistics from that May 15th inspection. So 996 units were in violation with chafed rubber hose violations. I've included a picture to the right of a hose that shows an indication of what a chafed air hose would look like. A lot of people don't really understand what inspection or what violations look like. I get that response from a lot of our drivers. It's not that they don't want to do the right thing. It's just that they don't know what they're looking for. So that's just one example of a brake hose line that would be problematic and could be written up for a violation. 185 units had chafed thermoplastic hose violations. Those thermoplastic nylon lines are the red and blue air lines that many of us use. Some of us may use what's called polar lines, the much thicker rubber. But the majority of trucks on the road today that I tend to see have the thermoplastic nylon lines. If those areas that I've squared up with the red squares inside that white spot, that's a wear mark, and that is an out of service on that particular hose. That hose, I physically went to Angola, New York to pick up the truck where the driver had run out of hours because he was placed out of service for that particular line. Down at the bottom, 1,125 violations of 393.45B2 chafed hoses, and then there's another 124 of the same violation section under kinked hoses. And that would fall under brake tubing and hoses, assemblies, and end fittings. All right, so 2019, a data snapshot, and this is as of June 28, 2019. Out of 1.8 million inspections, the number one violation for the brake related was clamp or roto type brakes out of adjustment. Number two, commercial motor vehicles manufactured after 1994 has an automatic brake adjustment system that fails to compensate for wear. When you get written for the out of adjustment, inevitably that second item will be written as a second violation. They almost fall hand in hand all the time. Number three, again, brake hoses or tubing, chafing and or kinking, and we kind of talked about that a little bit in the previous slide. No or defective ABS malfunction indicator lamp for trailers manufactured after March 1st of 98. 37,000 violations. Not a large CSA hit on that particular violation. The problem occurs is because that light being out is what caused the truck to be pulled over. Once the truck is pulled over, then the officer can dig further, depending on what level of inspection. A level 3 would be just a driver, a level 2 would be a walk around. The level 1 is where he's going to do a full inspection, check the brake stroke, and that's what's going to be occurring during this coming week during the inspection. And then inoperative or defective brakes. So there were roughly 32,125 of those violations. If you go under 393.47E1 in that safety regulation handbook that I will note at the end of the presentation, you'll find some information on the stroke. For example, on a 20-inch standard stroke, can is 1 3/4 inches. On a long stroke would be 2 with a 3-inch rated stroke. Again, it would be 2.5 inches. On a 24-inch can, you got 1 3/4 inches. On the long stroke, it's 2 inches. And with a 3-inch rated stroke, you have 2.5 inches on that limit. And then you have a 30-inch stroke limit is 2, and on the long stroke is 2.5. So that's one of the good things that our maintenance division can do is check on that stuff for you as you go along. Make sure that your brake stroke is at the proper length so that you don't get written up for these particular violations. All right, CSA Impact. Again, CSA could be an hours-long conversation. I won't try to take up too much of your time on that. We're just going to focus on the vehicle maintenance basic of CSA. There's 7 basics within the program, but we're just going to focus on the vehicle maintenance. 393.40 through 393.55E, that is the group they consider brakes and all others. The severity weighting, most all the brake violations are going to be at 4 points. Just as an aside, if you're placed out of service, they will add an additional 2 points onto that particular violation. So in that total section 393, there are 62 total violations. If you remember earlier in the, can't remember, second, third slide possibly, under DSMS, there's the definition, driver's safety measurement system. The driver is only responsible for 39 of those violations out of the 62. Under the carrier safety measurement system, the carrier itself is responsible for all 62 violations. So it's in the best interest of the company and the driver to make sure that the trucks are kept in good repair, that the brakes are adjusted properly. And Aaron will follow up on that when I'm finished my presentation. He'll give you a little bit more detail on what's needed. Again, the CSA, it can be a day-long class on CSA. That's just a quick overview of what's going to apply on the group brakes at 393. This next slide, I've included a number of pictures here. These are pictures actually that I've taken. I have taken these pictures. These are from our trucks over probably the last 10 years or so. So if someone isn't familiar with what a kinked airline looks like, up in the upper left-hand corner, you can see that blue airline. That would be considered a kinked airline. Restricts the airflow, could cause your brakes to drag, could cause a fire, and could cause loss of cargo, trailer, or the entire unit itself. The picture in the middle is one of our drivers holding a hose for me. I don't know if you could see that well, but there's a slice in that. It was rubbing up against a bolt. The upper corner on the right-hand side, another hose worn down to the cloth. Definitely out of service on that particular hose. The lower left-hand corner, another picture of that blue airline with the white spots worn in it. Again, an out of service criteria on the thermoplastic nylon lines. Part of that problem occurs because of the middle picture. And if you guys are running across any of your trucks, if the springs are worn out, the pogo stick is broken possibly, the cords are too long. You want to get those up off the catwalk. They are not meant to be laying on the catwalk and rub around, and then now you have a white spot in your hose. The officer looks at it, sees the white spot, and now you're placed out of service. That lower right-hand corner, I showed you that earlier slide. That is a small picture of that hose. There's been some discussion. Under the criteria, that hose, particular hose, would not be rated as out of service. There's a thin layer of rubber over top of that cloth underneath. So compare that to the picture in the upper right-hand corner, and you can see that there's quite a difference. It could be the difference between being placed out of service and just getting a written violation for a chafing or rubbing airline. All right, so I'm going to add something that's called Operational Policy 15. Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, again, every year they have big meetings and decide what out of service criteria is going to apply to certain things. They get feedback from drivers, carriers, stakeholders, just getting their input on what they think should be and should not be in that particular book. So there seems to be a lot of questions on when should air hoses be documented as a violation for chafing. The answer would be no violation should be written up unless the inspector can see a reduction in the hose diameter. So that would definitely fall into play in that last picture we saw where there's a reduction in that hose diameter where it wore down. And yet it would not be placed out of service because it didn't wear through to that second cloth reinforcement layer. And that would be explained better in that second paragraph. A violation arises when the damage extends to or through the outer reinforcement ply. So it is not a violation, according to CVSA, if the hoses rest on or lightly rub on parts of the vehicle. If observed, the inspector is to advise the driver that while not a violation, it could lead to one in the future. The interesting thing about that paragraph is the fact that as a safety manager, I try to ask my drivers to call me when they get DOT'd, when they're pulled over by an officer, to just give me a call and let me know how things are going. A lot of times you may be able to get ahead of the curve with the officer. If you can speak to him, if they're willing to speak to you, you may save yourself possibly getting out of a violation, or at the best case scenario, at least not getting out of service on that particular violation. Officers go through training just like any of us have in what we do. Some maybe missed the training. They missed that memo describing that paragraph and they feel that it was a violation and they are wrong. You do have the ability to data queue it through the CSA system if you'd like. But if you don't know any better, then you don't have a chance. So driver awareness is a big, big part of this particular slide that I have right here. The last paragraph, further thermoplastic nylon tubing may have braid reinforcement or color difference between the cover and inner tube. That whole paragraph has to do with the red and the blue lines, where you could see cloth or that white spot coming through with a braided area. Again, that would be considered an out of service on that. An interesting thing that was kind of hidden in the regulations, we don't get written for it often, but it is possible to get written for it. The non-metallic brake tubing, coiled non-metallic brake tubing may be used for connections. They're talking about the airlines between the tractor and the trailer. That spring area that's on both the tractor side and the trailer side needs to be butted up against that brass fitting of the glad hand. They are not tack welded on, they're pressure fitted. If those springs begin to slide down, it allows that hose to kink much easier. For anybody that does any plumbing work, if we have any plumbers here, you know that you never try to bend a plumbing hose or tube without a pipe bender, or it will tend to kink. So that's the same principle that applies to that spring. So if from a maintenance perspective, you see that spring sliding down off of the hose end, you either want to tighten it up or replace the hose itself. So if a driver comes to you and does explain that to you, it'll be well worth your time to replace that hose or fix that for him. All right, and I mentioned earlier about that Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance book. So that's a picture of it. That's the fine young man there in the center that's doing an inspection. This is 2019. Every year they come out with a new version of it with some additions, some deletions. It's worth, I think it's $45. I'm not sure if that's for members or not. It may be for the general public. It's probably one of the best books you could get for your safety department, for your maintenance department, because that is the book that inspectors follow when there is a question as to what is going to be placed out of service or not. I've included the link to the right at www.cvsa.org. I'm sure you'd be able to go in and purchase as many books as you'd like. Definitely a worthwhile investment. Wouldn't hesitate to buy it if I had to buy more for my company. The next slide is the safety regulation book that I mentioned earlier. It's offered by J.G. Keller. I would imagine that the majority of people on this particular webinar today are familiar with J.G. Keller. It's a very, very good organization to be involved with. They have a ton of information for all different kinds of things. That book is basically our Bible. I don't know the price on it off the top of my head, but it's definitely reasonable. I want to say somewhere between $12 and $15 if I'm not mistaken. That is updated quarterly. You would need to purchase the quarterly update, but again, it's worth every penny that you would spend for that particular book. And again, that's J.G. Keller. The phone number is to the right, along with their website there. And I was a little behind on hitting that slide, so I'm hoping I'm caught up there. And then this last one, and I want to close with this. Basically, the evolution of a professional driver's mind. Again, I mentioned way back in the beginning that knowledge, you want to give the drivers as much knowledge as you can, as much knowledge as they're willing to accept. Can never be enough knowledge in this business. You're learning something every day, every minute, every mile that you travel. Most drivers in and of themselves, they want to do the correct thing. But again, they just need to be shown. They don't understand what a violation truly is. They don't understand why they got written up because no one ever showed them. So knowledge is power, is the old saying, and it stands true here. Awareness. You want to make the driver aware of CSA. How does it impact you? How does it impact the company itself? Their particular PSP report, their individual driver report. Explain to them how that could impact their career, whether they stay with you as a driver or move on to other companies. Safety meetings. They are not mandated through regulation. Again, it's a company best practice. There's no reason why they shouldn't be given. Safety meetings are a tremendous tool to use, a tremendous venue, again, to give your drivers knowledge and to train them on what they need to do to be successful. And then from a safety perspective, from my perspective, impromptu visits to just reinforce that knowledge and make sure that they're learning and that they're applying what you've taught them through safety meetings and tests and just general knowledge throughout. So what do you do with that knowledge once you get it? You have to act upon it. So I can have all the knowledge, I can have all the awareness I want, but if I look at an airline that's kinked and I don't do anything about it, then I have no one to blame myself. So again, the pre-trip, the inter-trip inspections, the post-trip inspections, those are three important inspections that need to be done throughout the course of the day and that are mandated by regulations to be done. I mentioned earlier that accident in Colorado. Part of the discovery on that, I'm sure, will be the fact of whether this gentleman did his pre-trip inspection, inter-trip inspections, and post-trip inspections prior to leaving. And then the last one is prevention. And that's where AIM can play a tremendous part. We can help build a strong, cohesive relationship between the customer and the maintenance department and our maintenance techs. It's a two-way street. Our mechanics do a great job for us. They do a great job for hundreds and hundreds of customers. But they need that communication from the driver, for the driver to come in and say something is wrong with my vehicle and I need to get it repaired. So again, it's a two-way street between maintenance and drivers. That's one of the biggest things that AIM offers is the ability to work with customers and to help them in those areas. So if you do those four things, it should equal success. It's as simple as that. You're successful as a company, your drivers are successful, your maintenance department is successful. It's a win-win for everybody, as they say. So in closing, I'd like to say thank you very much. I hope I gave you some information that you can move forward with on this. Again, my contact information is on the first slide. I want to thank Jess and Aaron for inviting me to this. It was very fulfilling, and I hope everybody gained some knowledge from it. So have a nice day, and Aaron, I think you're next up.
Thanks, John. Do you want to just hit the stop share?
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you very much, John. And as I mentioned, we now have Aaron Chamberlain, who is the Director of Maintenance at AIM. He's going to be conducting part 2 of the presentation. And John will still be on the line. And once again, we're going to have an open question section at the end. So Aaron, the floor is yours.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much. I know what John has covered there so far is of probably really good value that you can put to work immediately with your drivers. And in an effort not to drag this on beyond a time that everybody can pay attention to, I'm just going to run through some brief things as our maintenance department pertains, especially to Brake Safety Week. So I'll cover some AIM preventative maintenance practices, and I'll at least provide to you, I won't read through them all, but I'll provide you the federal annual inspection requirements and brake inspector requirements in the federal motor carrier safety regulations. And then again, I'll reiterate a couple of the common defects that we see for violations, and maybe how we play a part and how we can also help educate the drivers. Again, as I said, preventative maintenance, how we play a role here is where we can hopefully provide you minimal exposure out on the road. Again, I'll talk through a couple of the maintenance things that we do. Areas specifically related to the brakes that we cover on our preventative maintenance inspections take place in multiple areas of the vehicle. In the cab, we're checking a lot of the things that the drivers also check daily. So we're verifying the trailer hand valve operation, tractor and trailer protection valves, parking brake operation, and then we're testing low air warnings, governor cut in, cut out, checking air pressure gauges between the tanks, primary and secondary, and then in and around underneath the vehicle. This is a big one. John showed some really nice examples there of air hoses. What we're checking for is the condition of them, looking for any chafing or wear, but the critical piece there is that we're checking the routing and the securement of those so that we can prevent those from wearing. We're inspecting the brake chambers, looking for broken springs or wear while it's in for preventative maintenance. Also, brake stroke, we're checking operation of the slack adjuster. We compare the brake stroke measurements across axles, across the vehicle, proper lubrication of the slack adjuster, make sure that it's working properly. Again, a common issue. We're checking the brake lining or pads, depending if it's disc brakes or drum brakes. We're recording those lining measurements, making sure that the preventative maintenance intervals that we have in place, we should have no issue running until the next preventative maintenance before replacement would be required. We're checking the air tanks, the cords, lines, wiring, valves at the air tanks, looking for any kind of corrosion. When we drain the tanks, we're looking for moisture in the tanks, trying to prevent any issues there. Along the lines with moisture, we're looking at the air dryer and again the automatic purge valves. As I mentioned, the federal motor carrier safety regulations have specific requirements for who can do an annual inspection, which our preventative maintenance inspection meets, as well as being a brake inspector. So I've referenced the regulation numbers there, and you can read through these, but specifically speaking to brakes, a brake inspector is typically an employee of a motor carrier or a provider, what we are. They've demonstrated knowledge of the braking systems and tools and equipment required to service those. We've either put them through some programs combined with work experience to meet requirements, and then we keep a list. We have certifications on file, and we measure those to make sure that we're in compliance. Again, here are some more details about what our inspectors have met. Again, we're hoping that you rely on AIM for as a service provider, so that you don't really have to worry about these things, and you can focus more on where the drivers can focus on these brake areas. John mentioned a really important part. You know, as I mentioned here on the slide, you know, an extremely rigorous PM process. It can't replace the responsibility a driver has for proper pre and post trip inspections. If there's a defect, there's nothing we can do about it until it's been reported to us. A DVCR, or hopefully our customers are using our electronic DVCRs to communicate these issues to us, and that we can quickly address them and complete that chain of custody, have them signed off so that drivers can hit the road with confidence. Again, common brake-related defects that John mentioned there, that chafed airlines, or he showed you some pictures of kinked ones, or any issues with the different types of airlines you have. A driver, again, proper routing and securement, most of the time that's going to be keeping them up off the catwalk or reporting those, not necessarily getting under the vehicle, but definitely all of these are important pieces that if you follow a detailed PM program. Brake adjustment, John talked about the specific example with the carrier responsibility and then also with the driver responsibility. Again, you can assist by reporting conditions that are felt during the operation as it pertains to brake adjustment. Lining, again, if he talked about brake positions not meeting the required, that typically means that the lining was low. Following the detailed PM program is going to be your biggest line of defense on that. But we do encourage drivers to report anything they feel while driving, or if they observe anything, maybe they see some oil in a wheel or oil soak on the inside of a wheel as well. That's really the main thing. As AIM, the service department here can help you out with as it relates to Brake Safety Week. I think the two slides together probably arm you with some good information to go back to your driving force with, and we'd certainly be happy to help you out with all of your maintenance needs and remove some of this worry from you, let you go out there with reduced exposure. And I think both John and I'd be happy at this time to go through any questions. Jess, I don't know if you want them to raise a hand or submit a chat.
However anyone feels comfortable. If you just want to ask a question, unmute yourself and ask, or if you want to type in the chat function. Does anyone have any questions for John or Aaron?
No, I'm good.
Okay. And if you can see, if you just click on your little profile picture, there's an unmute option if any of you are muted and can't see how to unmute yourselves. Here, I'll just do actually an unmute all. Any questions?
No question.
Well, again, thank you on behalf of myself, Jess. As she mentioned at the end of this slide, at the beginning of John's, our contact information's there, and we'd encourage you to reach out.
Yeah, and I'll send everyone out an email tomorrow morning, which will have PDF copies of these presentations, as well as a link to this video recording for this presentation. You guys will all have access to this, and if you want to share it with anyone in your company or whoever you think it would be good information for, please feel free to do that. Aaron, John, thank you guys both for your time. This was a great presentation, very well done, very informative.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, hope everyone has a great rest of your Tuesday.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
Oh, I have one question, Aaron, John.
Yeah.
Don McGuffin is asking, what was the name of the CVS booklet?
The CVSA, the out of service criteria booklet?
I believe so.
Yes. Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance out of service criteria booklet, the 2019 version. That was beyond the, I think, the third to the last slide. That information was. And if I'm not mistaken, that book is, I think, $45.
Any other